All right, we are live again to chat about random hobby things, and I'm excited to say we have a guest tonight. Martin, glad you're here. We've been following your artistic endeavors for a long time now, and it's very great to talk with you in like the digital medium. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, we've been working on the same team for a pretty long time. It's really nice to sit down and chat with you all and
Yeah.
I don't know
put
how long
faces to voices.
Yeah, how long has 28 been going now? It's been going for a while now.
Yeah,
Started
and
5 years ago.
Whoa.
you guys were there for the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I came on, I think, after episode or volume one came out. Maybe volume two had just come out.
I was gonna say it feels like you were part of it for most of the time.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
It does feel that way.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
And I
Nikki
can't
did
imagine
the
you not
first.
being there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. I can't imagine you guys not being there. I think sometimes we talk about 28, and it's kind of hard to show how much work goes into it behind the scenes,
That's
especially
true.
from like y'all and Manga and Alexander and uh, James. Everybody does a lot. You guys do a lot, just like editing. I have one of the easiest jobs where I'm just drawing stuff, and I've never edited an article.
That being said, I feel like your imagery is people will see that well before they'll sit down and read a long article. And I've certainly had a number of people say that like they can't get through those articles. They're too fucking long. So like they'll at least see the imagery.
Yeah, that's what draws people to it. They don't care if there is or is not an additional comma.
Yeah, but then if you did sit down, like on the off chance that you read it and you're like, "Oh, this is poorly written,"
These clowns, where's the Oxford comma?
Yeah. And
Admittedly, we
to your
don't
point,
use the Oxford comma.
I recently read one of your articles, so I did.
Like
it was the one about sculpting.
Oh yeah.
And you guys said don't start with a full miniature, and I was like,
And that's
good advice. And then that's what I did immediately.
But it worked out.
I mean,
yeah, it's very fun. I'm enjoying it.
Ultimately, you can interface with the stuff however you want, and I sort of feel everyone coming into the hobby and into like just looking at the 28 magazine, I mean, there are a lot of people who like they really want those longer articles and they're really interested in reading all that stuff, and then there are lots of others who I feel have really come into favor with the Instagram form of the hobby, where you're sliding through it, looking at the images, like maybe stopping here and there.
Yeah. I feel one is the fact that it's digital, I think is kind of difficult at times, in the sense that particularly for a magazine, like unless you have like an iPad, it can be kind of challenging to read some of the stuff.
That's fair.
Or, like you can read it on a computer, but then
they're big into it should be printed.
Like, yeah, how are you displaying it? Like, in some of that stuff, I feel can be harder. And like, if you're on a computer, like it's not like a magazine that you can just sit down on a couch and read it, or take it along on a train ride or something. But I mean, it is what it is. Printing stuff's expensive, and Games Workshop isn't there protective of their IP.
And I think I think there's a great kind of balance it offers to that Instagram movement, where it's like there is so much stuff that's just kind of like super digestible, and you flip through it, and then you never think about it again, or you give some people attention. But to have that option to go back the other way and like sit with it a little bit longer, or be like, oh, right, I'm getting into sculpting. I want to look through my own magazine, or this magazine I know that's free, and see if there's anything pertinent to it. Is a great.
Yeah,
there's something more.
I've been working on sculpting my first full miniature, and it's 428. I mean, I've been sculpting for years now, and I mean, I've gotten maybe pretty close to sculpting a full miniature where I'll have like a model and largely just sculpt over everything, but it's a very different process just starting from nothing, and ultimately it's whatever you get used to or whatever you're interested in and will like keep at it, so it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, but Gribble's miniatures, cool that you're sculpting miniatures, and yeah, there's nothing wrong with trying to do it, just the whole one, but it's cool you're trying to do it.
It's easy to get discouraged, I feel.
Yeah.
If it's the first time you've ever sculpted anything, you get like, I'm supposed to use green stuff. And then you get that out, like, oh my gosh, this sticks to fucking everything. Like, what? And then it's like, you do something like, well, this looks fucking horrible. Whatever, I'm done. So.
Well, one thing, I think the miniature you've been sculpting, Martin, is sort of a Nurglish looking, not that it is a Nurgle model, but
no, but it's close.
Creepy, corpulent Nurglish thing. And I think Anna might have commented on Instagram, like from Gardens of Hecate, that it's a good starting thing, and I think her first model may have been kind of that similar thing, because I think it is nice that you don't have to be quite as particular about anatomy and things, because it's a horrible, rotting, joyous monstrosity.
Yeah. Like if I was starting with a high elf, that would be a very bad idea.
Well, yeah,
and I would have to create some lore about why this high elf is so ugly.
Yeah, and why their features are so asymmetric.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But
yeah, well that's cool. Hey, no clear cut. Nice to have you here too.
Oh, I haven't been able to pull up the live YouTube video, so I can't see anything. So if people are saying, or if there are people in the stream, I can't see it.
Well, you can watch it later.
Yeah.
We'll bring up stuff if it's relevant. But I guess with that in mind, maybe we want to just get on with the quote-unquote podcast portion of this. And then after that's recorded, we can ramble on about this and that. But just so we get this portion recorded, are people fine with that?
Yeah. Oh, and High Gauge. I forgot to say. He's in the stream. Cool.
I thought you'd be playing Diablo 4 Gauge.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna start this if that's fine.
You need 4 monotone men's voices in your ear if you're gonna play Diablo 4.
Oh yeah, that's true. It's important. We'll really try to tap into the vocal fry to. All right. Well, I'm gonna start the recording portion.
Great.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dragged into Turbolasers, a miniature wargaming podcast from the people behind the blog Between the Bolter and Me. I'm Eric Wire, your host, and I'm here with my 2 brothers, Adam Wire.
Hey, everybody.
Greg Wire.
Hey, everyone.
And I'm incredibly excited that we're joined with our friend and guest Martin McCoy, who's pretty well known from his art for the 28 magazine. Nice to have you here, Martin.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure. As I was saying before, this is my first podcast I've ever been on.
Starting with the best, right?
Yeah, starting with the best.
Take that, Hive Scum. With that said, people should listen to Hive Scum, the Hive Scum podcast, if they haven't, but
they're all
it was fun listening to Gage and Steve come on to your kind of bringing the 2 worlds together. That episode I enjoyed a lot.
Yeah, they're great guys. But
it made me want to come on with a partner, somebody else, but then I don't have anybody quick at hand who's in the hobby.
Well, maybe in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really, really nice to have you here. Like, I feel we've been following your work for a while now, like all your amazing artwork that, as I suggested, a lot of people are probably familiar with it from being sort of 28 magazines, I don't know, resident artists that will, create some pieces for different articles and like borders and things like that. And you were actually recently featured in Volume 5, which just came out. You have an article in there that talks a little bit about your experience in 28, as well as a new project that you're working on, Mosscairn.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really happy to have that opportunity to show my own personal work in that way, kind of like talk about my experience. And as you guys know, making the magazine is a lot of work, and it's hard to like cut aside some time to make it about yourself and be like, oh, let me write my own article or put things together instead of just fulfilling the duties you've got. And it's great. I was really happy with it.
Yeah, no, that's funny because I think the first 2 volumes we actually did have articles in it. One about scale in the first issue, and then one about sculpting in the second. And then we just fell off the wagon and haven't.
Because you guys are kind of article writing machines. Are you still trying to write 3 articles a month?
Yeah.
For Between the Bolter and Me?
Yeah, we're still doing it. I mean, I say that with kind of a dejected sound, but I'm glad we're still doing it. But it can be tough. And we try to get 4 posts a month, but one of them is often a podcast. Which that's this.
Yeah,
nice.
Racking it up.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever think about bringing it down, or are you fully committed to that number?
I don't know. I consider it sometimes, but then I feel bad after having maintained it for
it's
over 10 years now. I feel like weird about it, but maybe at some point I will be less precious about it, and I would rather it just be good content than trying
we don't write as laboriously as we had.
We used to write long, terrible articles, or at least terribly long articles.
I don't know if they were terrible, perhaps, but they were the sort of too long, didn't read type of thing of us rambling about this and that. But I don't know, enough about us and this and that. Let's move on to talk about you. So yeah, you're a tattoo artist and illustrator. How long have you been involved in like the miniature hobby and such? And how is that sort of integrated with kind of your profession as an illustrator?
It all started with the miniature hobby for sure for me. Like I remember seeing my brother and his friend Lee playing with like probably 4th edition goblins and chaos warriors in like our laundry room when I was really, really young. And then just being like, what are these? And then we got Heroes Quest, and then I started seeing the codexes, and I think it was a big, other than watching National Geographics and crocodiles for some reason, hobbying was like the thing that made me want to draw. It was crocodiles and like goblins and stuff. So it's always been kind of a way of trying to like draw a cool Khorne bloodletter or like a knight or something. It's been really informed by that from the beginning. And then as I got older, I think I found some more interest in just like what were the sources of those things, like medieval printmaking. Became a big interest, and I got my degree in printmaking in college. I got really into Albrecht Dürer and Hans Holding. And then that kind of led me to tattooing, where that quality of line, that like heavy black line as a way to like define shape but not get into shading became really interesting.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
And I think I've known that I want to be an illustrator, and I've done a lot of like kind of junky throwaway jobs as I'm like working on that. And then I found tattooing as another outlet for illustrating just on people's bodies. and it like pays pretty well. And as I've been discovering this year, it lets me travel around the country as well and meet a lot of people. And
That's amazing. So you
opened up a lot of cool doors.
You said you have a degree in like printing and so forth. Did that result in just like other sort of classical art training as well? Did you take courses and things like that there?
I took life drawing classes. I never got that much into painting. I wish I had more formal painting training, but I didn't. It was more drawing, a little bit of sculpture, and like fundamental drawing 1, 2, and 3, and life drawing.
Okay. Well, that's still cool, and like I feel your background is certainly evident in all the excellent work you produce, as well as like Greg.
Oh, thanks.
Even he's wearing one of your T-shirts.
Yeah,
I have some of them that like all have very nice printing and such. So I feel your effort and training and such it looks like it was put to good use.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it feels really cool to be able to offer that.
Well, here's a question. You said alligators. Why
crocodiles
crocodiles? Why specifically crocodiles?
I think my mom showed me like this National Geographic program that was called like Here Be Monsters, about crocodiles on the Serengeti eating wildebeest and gazelles and stuff, and I was just like, oh, this is so cool. Like nothing's was ever cooler to my little mind, of just like so dramatic and big animals.
Where did you grow up then? Were you in Louisiana?
No, I grew up in Ohio. I grew up in a little college town in southeastern Ohio.
Okay. So
very far away from Africa.
Yeah.
In the Serengeti.
Certainly alligators there.
Oh yeah.
Not that at all.
No. I moved to New Orleans after college when I was 23, I guess. And I found like a print shop to work at, and then just a bunch of really dumb and weird jobs. While I found the punk community there. I was more of a metalhead before that, and then got into more like communal weirdo community building, and that's been very impactful and important for my life, and just how I see value in myself, though I'm like a starving artist. Not starving, but that I'm not a high businessman or something. I'm like, oh, it's okay. A lot of the dirt bags around me are also doing it that way.
Well, so with crocodiles, you've done a bunch of little illustrations of like cool turtles with flails and stuff like that. Are you a fan of amphibians and reptiles in general, or was it just crocodiles seemed gnarly?
I think it was just crocodiles seemed so gnarly. Like I hadn't thought about it much, but I have never really revisited crocodiles.
Because
excuse me, in a major way since like kindergarten. And then like some teachers were like, oh, you're good at drawing. And I was like, oh, cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to draw the blood coming out of the wildebeest.
Yeah.
Because before the three of us got into Warhammer, we were super into frogs.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. I mean, that shows up in a lot of your imagery.
Yeah.
We're still into frogs.
Yeah.
Make no mistake.
Yeah, it's true. They're awesome. And
there was a guy who I shared a warehouse studio space here in New Orleans who makes a bunch of broadcasting. It's not like miniature stuff, but he like makes cement toads, and then he goes to art markets and he dresses up as a frog and tells you stories about the little frogs he's selling.
That's amazing.
His name's Henry Lipkiss. He's a real a weird little gem.
Cool.
One thing before, like mentioning kind of about your journey through the miniature hobby and stuff, on Instagram I saw, did you actually win like a Youngblood, like place in Youngblood in Golden Demon? That's pretty cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I think I got third place with a painted dwarven runesmith.
That's amazing.
But I was like, I had just kind of like figured out dry brushing, and like edge highlighting just enough. And I'd figured out that if you primed a model black and you just hit like a little bit of it with dry brushing, it felt really contrasty, and that was good painting.
Yeah.
We went to Chicago when I was, I don't know, I can't think of, but I guess it was 2003. So that would have been 20 years ago. I would have been 13.
Your post says 2002.
Oh, well then I can't do the math.
Yeah.
Then I would. And then we went back this year for Adepticon, and that felt like such a fun and cool like circling of this thing is still in my life, and like a really fun way to spend time with friends and go meet new people and see new parts of the world. And I had kind of forgotten about it and that it was in Chicago until we were at Adepticon. And I was like, oh, that's so funny and kind of special to me.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So one thing that or go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna talk a little bit about some of like your line work and everything. I really like a lot of the little like tattoo pieces and such that you will post on your Instagram and stuff like that, because like a lot of them are a little more like simple line work where the different intensities and weights of the line like that, there's a lot of depth in that really helps add and change like the characteristics of things. And I sort of feel getting some of the ideas to come across as like well as you do like is very hard to do, and like I really like that. I'm impressed with that, and it's neat to see you do work like that, but then you also have others with much more like color and shading and depth and stuff, so it's just like it's neat. There's a larger range of what you see.
Oh, thank you. I worry about it sometimes that it's almost like slingshotting people around, but like the different like tattoo, like if somebody follows me for tattooing and then I'm like posting models for a while, but ultimately I don't know, it's all what I want to do, so it's very fun. And I appreciate you enjoying the variety of my many visual interests.
And I feel you can do a lot with just simple lines, and there's like almost like a hidden elegance in it. Like you can draw like just one simple line and like that captures like the leg muscles or whatever perfectly, whereas like you could have also achieved that with like 50 different lines, but and I feel that it can be very hard to achieve.
It can be, it's so fun kind of having a form dictate what I'm doing in a way where like, especially doing Mosscarin work recently, I haven't been tattooing very much, so the tattoos I'm doing right now are simpler just because I'm not willing to like sign myself up for a 3-hour session that is going to be really technically tough. So I'm just like doing like cute and simple stuff, and it's like it can be such a, I like having things dictated in a way like that, if you know what I mean, where it pushes you into a corner and then you get to enjoy that difference instead of doing everything the same approach.
Yeah, that's very cool. I feel, is there a type of like approach or a type of artwork you feel you enjoy the most, or you like, if you say had free time to like just work on a thing, that's what you would go towards, or is it just based on like your mood and like how things strike you?
I think it's definitely a seesaw where I will work on something in a particular way and then I'll kind of like want to do its opposite. But there is like a running theme of almost like aping John Blanche a little bit in using like watercolor and paints and markers and just like getting really messy and colorful and then working to refine that is always like really calming and fun for my brain. I think
well, do you
that's where I always go to
for some of that work. Do you at what point do you start adding the color? Do you like sketch it out, put in some of the color, then go back with like a heavier like ink line or something to redefine things, or does it just vary based on what it is you're working on?
I usually get some amount of pencil sketch in for like a Mosscarin piece, and I'll have like sketched out a thumbnail or two on another sheet. But once I start putting like watercolor on, I kind of lose that pencil anyway, so I don't get too precious about it. And then I just get real nasty and dirty
that's cool.
pretty fast, and then I'm like, okay, because there's, I think, so much of the joy that like or fun that comes across in my work is from that intuitive spot where it's, you can kind of feel that there's grime and nasty marks under what you're looking at. And that makes me paint more if I'm not like going into it really tight and have everything prescribed where it's going.
And you can sort of allow sort of the process sort of take you where it takes you, I feel, in some regards, which, that's cool. I feel
that is great.
A lot of the stuff that I would like to spend more time drawing and stuff like that, but I feel most of the time I'm just really particular about each line, and then when I go back and like ink it, I like ink that same line, and I feel would be maybe a little freeing and interesting to move away from that, because I feel I could learn a lot from it. And I think that's sort of one of the reasons I just sort of like looking at other artists and kind of hearing about their process, because everyone goes about things a little differently, and I think there's a lot you could gain from that, and you could go in a lot of interesting directions just trying new approaches.
I think if you're interested in trying it, there's like, I would recommend an exercise of just getting some watercolor paper and then getting the paper pretty wet. And then trying to like block in some stuff, and it just is so uncontrolled. It will just like splotch out if the paper's like fairly soaked or just like damp all the way. And then finding like shapes in that. I did a whole piece that was like these ugly, chubby bog monsters who were not ugly. They were beautiful. They were serving tea to each other, and like the whole thing was
I know what you're
started
about.
with this really intuitive like blotching out, and then I was like, oh, this is kind of like it frees your brain from that really I want to say critical part of yourself where you're like, oh, that's the wrong choice. Like, oh, it's a blob. Let me tell that blob what it is.
That's great.
Yeah, I feel your work sort of reminds me of Kentaro Miura's work, like the artist and creator of Berserk, the manga Berserk, like with the really kind
that's a high compliment.
Line drawings and such. And I think it's pretty amazing in that way. And towards that
because
end,
there's so much like fine line.
I think some of it just the fine line work, but also just because like Berserk there's very little color, like a few pages have been colored, but in general it's all so defined with like the dark line work and such, which is somewhat more reminiscent to old GW stuff. And I think something about that, the presence of all like the black line work really helps convey a mood. And I really like that.
Well, thank you.
And all just the sort of medieval fantasy stuff also kind of fits in that vein too.
Yeah. I don't draw that many big swords, but I would like to draw more also.
Well, I feel Berserk is in a way also, while maybe the main character had an oversized sword, most of the other stuff was all sort of bound to reality and what was what you would more accustomedly see. So I feel... Well, I also have, like, or some of your stuff reminds me of Ian Miller and stuff as well, because there's a lot of sort of like the thin, wispy, gnarly, wicked-looking trees and other stuff like that. Like,
oh yeah,
I feel that in itself. When I think of like fantasy, Warhammer, and all of that, that's sort of what I immediately think of and I'm drawn to. And in some regards, that's sort of what I want to see, and it brings back a lot of good memories for me.
Your artwork reminds me of like Karl Kopinski stuff and the era of 40K artwork that was so cool that they've kind of moved away from, but I wish they hadn't.
That is like the highest compliment to me. I love Karl Kopinski's work. I'm glad that it, like the Mosscarin stuff I'm doing feels like pretty distinct from that, but I think the 28 mag stuff I'm always happy with trying to find some balance between like that and the chaos of John Blanche.
Yeah. So you've now mentioned Mosscairn a few times. Perhaps we should ask you about that. So it's a RPG project that you've been illustrating. Can you speak a little bit to it?
Yeah, it's a project that I got approached to do like a D&D module about anthropomorphic medieval animals, and I was interested, and then we started kind of sketching and talking about what the world would be, and I had some backlog of some world building in that and some prints I had made, like this rat standing in front of a red sun, and then this other like kind of printmaking looking one of like rats fighting, or a bunch of animals fighting in a pine forest. And they after we talked about it for a while, they were like, we both thought it could be its own project, and then they've really given me full creative control to like develop this world. And it's like a dream come true. I love it to have. The people behind the company is Chronicle RPG, and they're two writers and like a director who does logistics and scheduling and thinking about math in a way that I don't. So they're like supporting us or supporting me and helping write mechanics and turn the lore, like blurbs I write them late at night, into actually digestible, like readable a book. But it's been like everything has been developed by me and the lore is mine, and
that's cool.
I have like a lot of stuff in my head that I want to share, and then when it comes to writing things, it's such a block. So having a team behind me to like turn it into a book, and that is like supporting the vision is so cool.
It's pretty fucking metal. Like the goose that you have that shows up in some of the pieces with the sort of spiked helmet. Amazing. Like I feel that helmet, that to me is chaos. That is what chaos should be in like Age of Sigmar, Warhammer, or 40K, and it just never gets there. It's all just over the top demon shit and teeth and such that isn't refined enough, and it's just so bulbous and oversized. Whereas I feel like this speaks to that viciousness without seeming overwrought and like hyperbole in a way.
Oh, I love that. I mean, what would be more chaotic than a goose like stringed up with bells and like a pointy helmet on? It would be so insane. Like one of the things I really love is that when I'm drawing, like a lot of kind of spur of the moment things happen that aren't like planned out, but then I have the freedom to like think about them for a while and be like, well, why would this be? And like the goose, the world is populated by animals and like demons and spirits, which was a really important thing of like, I want anthropomorphic animals, but I think it can be a little one note when everything you fight is a rat or a fox or something. Like, why wouldn't there be big gods? And then like drawing the war goose a couple more times, I was like, oh, well, maybe this like spooks spirits. Maybe the weird sounds they make and the bells like will
amazing. That's
like
cool.
make forest spirits afraid.
A lot of the artwork also really has a lot of vibes to, I think, a lot of the weirder elements of Mordheim and stuff like that. And like
Oh,
you're
yeah.
certainly
Thank you.
you look at the images, and if you spend some time looking at it, it's like, wait a minute, yeah, that goose does have bells on it, and like it's just there's a lot of little neat, interesting details that I feel you either could like read or know about why things are that way, or you could just try and come up yourself with like why you think that is, and like I
Yeah,
really like
uh-huh.
I feel it's very like Blanchian, like a John Blanche thing, and just all those details and such, like Adam is saying, is very similar to just the Mordheim rule book, and how it's almost like a story on the page without words, which is really cool.
Yeah, not justifying everything, just having like some things like
Yeah.
there's that bear that has like a blunderbuss in the equipment section of the Mordheim rulebook. Like,
Mhm.
what's his deal? It's never explained, and it's
Yeah.
even better. Like, I love
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
justifying some stuff is good, but keeping it a balance where
Mhm.
some things are just mysterious and chaotic is very cool to me.
Well, so before you were approached about this project, so you said you had already had this image of the rat knight with the sun. So you had
Mhm.
already dabbled with drawing anthropomorphic animals and knight sort of stuff. Like, where did that interest come from? Like, did you read a bunch of the Redwall books when you were younger, or
Yeah, uh-huh. I remember our dad reading us Redwall when we were kids, and it being like the first most digestible form of like medieval fantasy that I could take and being like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
It's looking back, I wonder why swords were so cool to me. Like, if you describe a sword to a kid, why would I love it as much as I still do? They're like,
Actually,
what up?
have you illustrated like a questing crocodile knight? And if you
I
haven't,
want to see
No,
that.
I haven't.
I crave.
I crave. Perhaps I too also crave. That would be a great closing of that great
Yeah.
journey in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also, I think like a lot of the armor and stuff that you have, like the little dude's wearing, it it seems very believable, and also like the characters, like they've been wearing this and they've lived in this for a long time. Have you researched into like all that stuff to try and figure out like how you can make all of that stuff work and look believable?
Like how a gambit is worn or a gambesson is worn or like
Or
plate mail or something.
yeah, any of that stuff.
No, not really. I look at a ton of references, but I'm not like
Yeah,
a
okay.
great student of history where I like
Yeah.
I want to see the image and I can make some sense of it. I'm like, okay, this is they like used a lot of leather ties and thongs to keep like gambesons together, but then like am I reading a article on Elizabethan like armoring? No, I
Yeah.
can't. Like
Well,
my
it looks.
eyes roll into my back of my
Do you
head.
have there's a book called, what's it called? A glossary of the construction, decoration, and use of arms and armor. It's like a reference book I was recommended
yeah.
by people. Do you have that book?
No, I don't.
Okay,
But
you
we'll be
should.
seeing. I think I'll be seeing you guys soon, so maybe
I'll
I'll
try
take a
and
look at it.
Yeah,
I
we
can
should bring
mean,
it.
you
So
know,
I
I'll
think
bring it along.
that
oh
was a
yeah,
book that was actually recommended by Gene Wolfe, the author of the series The Book of the New Sun, which is like a amazing fantasy sort of sci-fi series. And it amazed me in the book how much detail there is into weapons and armor and things like this in sort of a natural way, and he recommended it. And
Oh,
it's
cool.
really amazing. And
Well, I
the
think
book of the new sun's amazing too. But
I don't even think you need to bring it to Virginia. I think I'm gonna keep traveling, and we'll probably be
Oh, that's
visiting you
fair.
guys at
Yeah.
some point afterwards. But I think I got sidetracked and kind of focused on the wrong part of Mosscairn, where I was like, this is how the sausage was made of like how I'm getting support from a team without pitching you the idea of the world, which I'm excited about. And it's the idea is that there are these two energies, two stars rotating each other in the void before anything's formed, and one of them is kind of like green life energy, and then there's a purple death energy or decay, and they're in connection or they're in a balance, and then they keep trying to touch each other like they're attracted to each other, but they can't do it, and each time they like spark and blow each other apart, kind of like Muspelheim and Niflheim in the creation of like the Norse mythologies.
Yeah.
And then out of the void, these spirits come on, not explaining where they're coming from. It's like kind of one of those mysteries. And they become interested, and they're trying to take these roots of light that come out of the stars and weave a world, but they can't do it because they're too elemental and raw. So then they create these little weavers who are kind of like Norns. They sit at a spinning wheel, and they take the starlight and they turn it into a thread, and the spirits make the world out of the thread. So then every character and living thing in the world is connected to these kind of like mythical spiritual threads in a way. And as a character, you can like pull on those threads. You can, depending on like what energy you have stored up or what your experiences have been. And they can be good if you're like using the green energy, or they can be like bad if you're using the purple energy. Like you can get like permanently cursed, kind of, where your like teeth start falling out and your fur gets gross and people think your breath smells bad. Kind of in the Mordheim like injury table of like, oh, this is gross stuff. And the world is animals, the civilization of animals trying to find how they relate to the great like spirit forest gods, kind of in a very Miyazaki inspired way. Like,
yeah, I wanted to ask about that because some of the imagery reminds me of like Princess Mononoke and
absolutely
some of that sort of feudal Japan elements with some more European designs as well. But I think it's really cool.
I love that idea of like taking elemental nature and anthropomorphizing that in a way that it has like agency and power, and it can retaliate against like people's abuses or neglect or carelessness, and it being like a really serious threat. And
are you gonna make some cute Kodamas or something, little forest spirits?
I don't know if there are any like little cute guys. I think the smallest thing is like a kind of like a root dog.
Okay.
It's but I mean, you know, now that you say it, there would have to be like little guys. I'm sure they're like fairy something.
They're gonna be a little frog creatures because I
I crave those too.
The spirits.
I spend a podcast with you guys, and then thanks. Yeah, I'm trying to kind of balance that alienness with them to kind of contrast the familiarity and the comfort that you have when you have animal characters. That can feel very cozy, which is fun. Like a lot of games kind of do that, but I want to push it in a slightly new direction where it's like cozy. They're like cute animals, but also they're massive gods that will like put tubers in, or like, you know, like suck you dry from roots or something, destroy a city because it's out of whack with nature. Like, I think there's a lot of fun drama there that I want to explore.
What is the status of the game? Is it like largely written? I think it's coming to Kickstarter. Do you have a sense of when that might be?
I think maybe October. It's not largely written. It's like in process of getting written. Like we're batching out the quick start, which is before we kickstart it, we're going to like release a small, maybe 1 or 2 part adventure for free for people to make characters and do a little adventure and get familiar with the world. So right now we're kind of focused on that. And I think that'll be really helpful to teach us like, what do people respond to? What do they like before we take it to at like pretty finished point of marketing it on Kickstarter. We really want it to be like
Yeah, that's amazing, and I feel that's from my experience, is a much better way for Kickstarter to be successful is to be able to actually show people things and like see a more complete product or feel like you can invest in that rather than just like two
Hmm.
pieces of artwork and saying like you can trust us guys.
Yeah, and as a creator, I think I feel way more comfortable with it because like having the
Certainly.
first time you have a lot of people play test it from different areas and different experiences.
Mhm.
The after you've shipped is like terrifying. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
hmm
But people are
Talking.
playing it in Australia right now. Like there's a beta test in
That's
That's
awesome.
cool.
the city, which is so fun.
Mhm.
It's just another reflection of like, oh, I love this community.
Yeah, that's
hmm
cool.
That's really cool. This is like shifting slightly, but you also have done a lot of artwork for Necropolis 28. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I've been working with Will for maybe a year. I just finished some concept art for miniatures, which I'm really excited. I've seen a little bit of the like sketches that we're getting from Blightbones, that sculptor. I don't know if you guys follow him, but he's great. Shout out Blightbones.
Mhm.
And it's going to be a necromancer, a little orb holder creep dude with an orb, two like candelabra skeleton skulls, and a big hulking like bone golem. I think this will be the first concept art I've made that has gone to. This will be the first thing that goes to print from me, which is really cool.
That is
As
cool.
like just loving minis since I was a kid, uh, having something that I
Yeah.
designed.
Yeah.
It's like a year of dreams coming true.
That's great.
Yeah, but the
Have you guys
artwork is
ever
super cool.
have you guys ever cast any of this stuff you've made? I mean, you guys have been making minis for so long.
Yeah, so like I guess a few years ago, we taught ourselves how to cast models and make molds and stuff, and that was largely
Oh
just
yeah.
out of the notion. I spent all this time resculpting smaller firearms and pistols and
Oh
all
yeah.
this
Yeah.
other stuff, and it's like I don't really want to resculpt this every time. So like spent some time, made our own like pressure chamber, learned how to make molds and whatever, and cast models. So we've been doing that for a while, and it's more like just kind of an interest that, depending on the project we're working on, if we can find a use for it and a need for it, we'll then use
Uh-huh.
that. Like I know
It's
in the
it seems
more
like I'm still seeing like a good amount of brass rods in your
yeah,
like firearm mods.
yeah, so that
So you go ahead, sorry.
that has been, they're very helpful in that you can get much thinner, smaller barrels than, like in the past. Most of the stuff was I'd look around all the GW models and stuff and find what's the thinnest little circular rod or whatever I can find, and then
Uh-huh.
like I will use that. And that, they only make them so small. And then even if you find the small ones, they're not that sturdy or anything. So the brass
Hmm.
tubing works really well for that. Um, but like I feel one of the last, which mind you, it was a while ago, but for the Mordheim 2019 event, I kind of got the idea it would be cool to have kind of an invisible like apparition of sorts that you could only really see if it was covered in blood. So I
Hmm.
modified a model, made a mold of it, cast it in like a clear resin, and then painted
Oh,
like the
that's
blood and stuff
cool.
on that. So it's something we use periodically now and again, but
But
sort
I
of
feel it's kind of like a hobby in itself
that,
too. Like
yes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
it's all, to get it to work well is also time consuming.
Yeah.
So like we don't do it as much as we could.
Yeah, I was just watching a miscast video about it, and once he got the pressure cooker out, I was like, oh no, this is like a different level. I can't go there.
Yeah, and I mean, we did a
We
lot
have a
of.
bunch of helpful posts on our blog.
We do, and like I
Without
spent
pressure cooker?
or it.
It tells you how to build a pressure pot from a
Yeah.
paint like thing to paint houses. They will have those pressure
You have that
pots.
thing for like a big bucket of paint that you put inside this chamber that you then have. Essentially, it's like a large airbrush to spray like a house or something, or like a power washer type thing. So we figured out how
the pressure pot.
Yeah, that's very important. Like we dabbled with, like we have a small vacuum chamber as well, and we spent a lot of time experimenting with different things to try and get the best molds and stuff that we could. And like there's so much stuff to learn, trial and error and everything that we spent. If you go and read the blog, if anyone's interested in doing stuff like that, we have a lot of information about that, which I know we've certainly talked to a lot of hobbyists who have gone and used some of that information and have done a lot of that.
Well, the reason
we have a resin casting like tab on the website that can just take you to all of our helpful posts.
Oh, that's nice. The reason I was asking about the brass rods is that it kind of says to me that you're not using those guns that you're casting, or you're not like regularly casting gun substitutes that often.
So that is an interesting thing. Like I made a whole bunch of interesting little guns and stuff, and then I feel a lot of them I almost never used or only used a few times. And I find what I've used the most were like little holstered pistols and stuff like that, because like almost every model that I have has like a sidearm or two, and none of the ones Games Workshop makes are usable. So like I've used a lot of that in certain things, but like with brass rods and stuff, I made like a squad support like light machine gun modeled off of like the Browning automatic rifle, and like I thought it was really cool. And then probably 2 years after I cast it and made it, I finally actually used it on a model. So it's just the pace at which we work at things and I work at things is often relatively slow, and a lot of that I think has to do with how particular I am about things. So like I'll spend a lot of time working on a thing, and if my whims take me elsewhere, like who knows if I'm coming back.
I honestly feel 3D printing would probably be a better way to approach some of the stuff, but that's just another hobby
and
in itself. So.
I feel eventually I will start to do some more 3D sculpting and things, because I feel that would be a good way to sculpt a lot of little firearms and stuff like that. And then it would be, if you have someone where you either print yourself or know someone who can do it, then you can just change the size to your liking much more easily, rather than in this sense, like you make something and like, oh, that looks good, and then you put it on one of your models, well, too big. And then it's like back to the drawing board.
Back to square one.
Yeah, so it's
this is kind of shifting gears a bit, but certainly like on your Instagram and stuff, it's primarily your illustrations and so forth. Do you still build and paint models, and also do you play any GW games much, or?
Yeah, so that's a slightly longer question. I am sculpting some stuff. I haven't painted in a while. My girlfriend and I like built out a 93 Jeep Cherokee and moved out of our apartments in November of last year. We've been on the road for like 7 months. So I am actually like, I think not driving her crazy, but I am pushing the boundaries of like how much space I can take up in the Jeep. I almost called it a house.
Yeah, the cheap house.
With hobby stuff, but I like, and it's funny that now that space is so limited and precious that I'm like, I think I should start sculpting. I'm going to buy green stuff, and I'm going to have a little box where I am working on the road. But it's nice when we're like sitting at a couch at a friend's house or a farm we're staying at, and I'm like, ooh, I can do this one thing in the hobby still. But I have a group of friends that plays Mordheim maybe every 2 years. We started probably around 2018, 2019, around that like Mordheim revival, and we've had 3 different sessions, and Mordheim is really the only game that's like stuck with me since being a kid. I used to play Fantasy Battle, and I had like always tried to make a Chaos Space Marine army, but it never happened. But Mordheim is like, I joke is like I learned one rule set when I was 14, and I'm not planning on learning a new one. I did just learn Warcry recently, and I was like, oh, this is pretty like well written and tight and seems fun, but very kind of, I don't know how I feel about their new approach of like, we'll just tell you what everybody has. That kind of feels like less fun to me.
Yeah.
But if the games are more fun, I don't know. I haven't played them, so
I don't.
Admittedly, you say you learned one rule system in Mordheim and don't need to learn another. I mean, all of Games Workshop games for many years were basically just that game.
Yeah, they're
like
pretty
weapon skill,
similar.
ballistic skill, basically need to roll a 4+. Like, they're all so similar that
They've just gotten more streamlined now.
which is great. I mean, alternating activation is huge. I really think like we've been talking in our group about like incorporating that into Mordheim, doing alternating activation.
I've been, I guess the Texas Mordheim event, some of the people we were talking to, like, they thought that Mordheim had alternate activation.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I get it. Yeah.
It's like, that'd probably be better, but it does not. Like, I can guarantee you that game was written before the time that alternating activations was a thing in the
I think it would open
conscious.
up a lot of like strategic fun play of like who's charging in when, who you're holding onto their activation, like, and then like giving. I mean, maybe it would screw up balance, but I also love the fact that Mordheim has never had particularly great balance anyway, so who cares? But like a more numerous warband like Skaven would just have more activation, period. And that would be an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Are you guys playing anything right now? Do you have like an active? Of course not.
I actually have a group that for a while now, we've been playing Warcry. And
oh yeah, okay. How do you like it?
This is actually the second time the group has played Warcry. The first time was closer to when it was initially released, and now this we're playing, I guess, what is the 2nd edition. It's good. There are a lot of nice aspects and stuff to it. It doesn't... In the 2nd edition, they really added a lot of things to, like, the end game sequence. And I feel a lot of people who love Mordheim love that end game sequence where weird, funny stuff can happen, or you can find really interesting stuff.
Adam, you said the second time you're playing it. Does that mean like not you've only done it twice? You mean like
the second extended era of playing? Like, we played it for a few months when it first came out, and now we've been playing it for maybe the start of this year. We've been playing like every other weekend-ish.
Oh, cool.
So the newer edition, they really added a lot of things that are more similar to Mordheim. It's not quite as interesting as the things that could happen in Mordheim, but there is a little bit more of your sort of... Your warband as a whole is establishing a connection, and they're moving into different territories and gaining strongholds and stuff like that. And you have different quests you're going on and whatnot. So there are a lot of elements like that I think are good and help sort of push your warband towards a narrative, towards some narrative theme or purpose.
Yeah.
Which I think you could, I almost feel like in the future, if you were playing in a Mordheim event or doing something like that, you could take a lot of those newer things and add them on top of what was already.
Yeah, that's what
Mordheim.
I was thinking immediately.
Yeah.
Like, it would be cool to see that chopped up, or like, even not for Mordheim, but just like a new streamlined GW post sequence. Like what I see so much like, and that's what we're doing in Richmond, which we could talk about in a minute. But for the Hondious event, we're doing, we're using Forbidden Psalm, and it's like Forbidden Psalm is getting so much traction and use right now, but maybe it's just harder to chop up GW products rule sets at the moment, and they're more litigious and a pain in the ass. But
it
seems like that would
a
be
lot
fun.
of the stuff, some of that in-game stuff, and at least some of the general ideas could very easily be lifted and put into other things and changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that in the sense that Mordheim focused more on just the individual characters and the sagas of individual members and the bad shit that happened to them. This has some of that, but then it will also sort of force you as a player to think about, well, what's my ultimate goal of my warband? What are they going towards? What are they looking for? What are they hoping to accomplish? And I think it's just kind of another layer of storytelling that is easy to ignore, but if you do think about it, like that can really further a campaign or just interesting storytelling things. So I like that. And it doesn't
the narrative of your band.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be super complicated, and like it really isn't in Warcry, but there's some stuff there that kind of gets you thinking, and I think that's really good.
Let's chop it up. Somebody better chop that thing up.
Yeah.
Well, to touch on something you said, maybe this could be one of the last things we chat about here, because it's sort of approaching that hour mark. But you mentioned that you're actually you're running essentially like an Inc. 28 event, and I think you recently posted sort of some elements about it and some of the lore. Called the Rot of Hondious. Could you speak a little bit about that and like how it came about and that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I was saying, my girlfriend and I are traveling right now, and we went to Adepticon and we met like the Hive Scum guys and just like Mike, the Gundam official who's in Virginia, and it was a really fun, eye-opening experience. Like I haven't been around the community in person, like since working on 28 or in years outside of my own like little Ohio group that plays. So I was like, oh, they're like, these people are very cool and human and kind, and I want to be like more a part of this.
Yeah.
And then I knew that Shelby and I, my girlfriend, are going up to Virginia, and I was like, oh, Mike's in Virginia. And I don't know geography that well, but I was like, where I think Virginia is within where I think the wires are and where Johnny Lashley of Witchhammer Studio is, because neither, like, you guys weren't at Adepticon, and you were kind of like, but those two groups were like, oh, missing in my head of like, I would love to hang out with both of y'all. And then I kind of thought like Massachusetts and New England were like kind of within driving distance of Richmond, which like, not really, but I think the Hive Scum dudes are gonna do it, and some other people like Blackfish on Discord is coming down. I answered the question really practically again. So that's well, I wanted to run an event because we're all kind of like, at least you guys and Johnny and Mike and I are all within driving distance.
Mm-hmm.
And then starting to talk about that, I was talking to Bill Ford, who ran Boardheim 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And I just floated the idea that I kind of wanted to run a narrative event of maybe like 3 different tables or scenarios that are linked. And that seemed fun.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I want to do that too. And then I started thinking about this idea that came from like a George R. Martin short story called like Lydia's Song or something, about this planet where there's like a sentient empathic organism that people like lay down and surrender to, and they lose their individuality, but they're like super blissful and happy. And I've always loved that idea of like that weird, uncomfortable body horror of like, I could be really happy and give up my individuality and not have a body anymore. And that seems terrifying, but you're telling me I'll be really happy. So then I was like, what if that was a plague?
Everyone's doing it, Martin.
Yeah.
yeah. Become a frog. Everybody's doing it. So I was thinking about how that could be a cool plague that would rack like a
planet.
A planet, yeah. And then there was a very practical concern of like, what are we going to do for terrain? And I've always wanted to use Mordheim terrain in a tech like Fallen world, because it's you're just recycling. And I think so much of Inc. 28 already is like the genius of using fantasy and like the Mordheim bits in the 40K setting, and it just looked so cool. So then it just kind of came together. I was like, well, then, it's a terrible planet that the Imperium ignored and let it fester in medieval monarchy. And then a plague came and they were like, just cut it off. And they let it kill itself practically. And everybody on it die. They just wrote them off. And then 20 years later, the plague starts jumping to other planets nearby. And they're like, oh, shit, we have to go deal with this in a real way. Let's get some Inquisitors together. We can't like have a full Imperial force deal with it because they're dealing with the riots of like the plague showing up, and they're squashing that. And then I was talking to Nick Cordall, like the UK sculptor who's so incredible.
Yeah,
and
Nick
we were
Tredejo.
talking. What's that?
Yeah, Nick Tredejo. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, Nick.
And and we were thinking about like knights and nobility still being alive on planet, and he was like, if the plague works in the joy and empathy centers of its victims and makes them like ecstatic and happy, maybe the knights are like self-lobotomizing and they're burning out their joy and empathy centers in their brains, so they can be more resistant. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I love that.
That's amazing.
Nick,
so brutal.
Nick, I feel a few years ago, he made a little warband with like Inquisitors and stuff. And I distinctly remember he made one. They were like a sniper in like a safe full body suit. And it's like the Inquisition sending someone in to just eradicate whatever the threat was. And like that. It was. I feel it's been one of my favorite models Nick has made. And I just think like that fits like almost perfectly with this whole idea. Like they would fit really well with that.
He's really a machine with both sculpting and creating models and painting models and then writing cool narrative stuff.
Writing.
Like he's second to none.
I have so much admiration for people that could just pump out lore tidbits with their models. Like, I will sit there for so long, just like going back and forth and not ever get anything I'm happy with. And it's something I just want to keep working on. Like I'm not going to write it off and be like, I can't do it. But right now it is still like really working that muscle and trying to get that speed up, because right now it's so slow.
I hear that.
Yeah, but so this event, like, it's going to be kind of a smaller event, I think, is you want to try to kind of get a sense of what it's like to run one. But you did post some information on Instagram kind of describing the setting and encouraging other people to create some models and such that might fit in it. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would, like, I know Virginia is not central to a lot of people and it's not practical or you have kids or whatever. And I would love if people, even if they don't want to mail it or they just want to make art or they just want to jump in on like a thing that looks fun, like create something, send us some photos. Like I think it's a cool way to recycle some bits and mash some stuff together in like a tech meets low feudal. And everybody's invited to join. I think we might be opening the Virginia event a little bit higher. I'm still trying to like talk that through, but it seems like there might be a little bit more interest, and I think the space can probably take it. So we're in conversation about that right now.
Okay.
And I guess we'll just never have like dinner together because it'll be too many people.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, it's super cool, and I'm excited to see what comes of it. And I don't know, hopefully we can make some models for it as well.
So how close was I? How close are you guys to Virginia? Is my estimate right? You guys have told me where you live, but there are three of you. It's hard to.
In like Maryland, where Eric and I are, if traffic's not awful, like we have to sort of drive south through some areas like DC and whatnot. So like 2.5 hours ish, but it could be a lot longer depending on. So it's not bad. It's not really bad.
It shouldn't be bad, but
yeah,
DC, I don't know, can sometimes be a pain. But no, if you got it right.
Yeah.
And then where is Greg? Where are you?
He's
I'm
in
like
Pennsylvania.
an hour and a half north of the Baltimore area, so
Oh, okay.
like an extra hour. But probably what'll happen is I'll just drive down to meet up with Adam and Eric. So like it will not be bad.
Yes, it's very fun getting to do this podcast and chatting with you guys, and then also knowing that I'm going to meet in person and get to do like a weekend of grimdark storytelling and hanging out.
That's right.
Almost here.
Yeah,
it's true. But yeah, I think it's really exciting, and I think in general, like to encourage the listeners to either create some models potentially for this or just reach out to other friends and try to set up your own events and things. Like I feel the more you interact with other people from the community that are doing things that you think are cool, the better. I feel it's one of the strongest elements of the hobby. And
totally.
Yeah, if it weren't for that, like I mean, we wouldn't be creating a podcast and talking with you, Martin, and all those things. So I think, I'd really encourage people to.
And did you guys go over to Mordheim 2019? Have you gone to Europe? Yeah, that's so cool.
There. We were there in Finland and.
Yeah, because that's kind of a crazy element, and we've probably mentioned it briefly in the past, but like we started between the Bolter and me like over 10 years ago, and like within like a year or so after starting it, Alex from like 28 and so forth, who hosted Mordheim 2019, like he was commenting on the blog.
So that's cool. Yeah.
Somehow like that, we kind of got connected through that and just chatting about things and made some models for different things. Made one actually for his feudal 40k setting, Outguard.
Yeah.
And
go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so and I'm just saying, like, so it's interesting how just what at first was like a small connection, just commenting on things you see that people are doing and liking, that ultimately resulted in us starting 28 with him and James and so forth, and then going to Finland to play in the Mordheim 2019 thing. And like meeting
so cool.
John Blanche and all those luminaries. So like, I don't know. It's
I think in general, one of the big things that over the years we've really learned is if you just start putting yourself out there, even if it's as simple as like showing some stuff on Instagram or commenting on other people's things, like you never really know how much like some of your comments or any of that will go, or how much that will mean. And there are a lot of weird, interesting connections you can make, and it can be really rewarding and neat and fun, because the blog is started as a way for the three of us to remain in contact and excited about stuff, but it has really moved into a whole lot more, and I don't think I would be nearly as engaged and excited with the hobby as I am now without like the community involvement and all of that.
When we had mentioned Nick Triggeggio, UK Nick, like we first came in contact with him on the old forum, the Ammo Bunker, and he started posting some of his early sculpting work and conversion stuff, and I just started commenting on that, and like he has become quite the powerhouse and excellent sculptor in a short number of years.
And also just a good friend. Like sort of speaking to his cool idea about the lobotomized knights, that seems very up his alley, being a PhD in biology, essentially.
Oh yeah. I didn't know that.
I think maybe, but yeah, he visited one summer for the biology conference, and then visited the three of us for a couple days, and so like it's
cool.
It's cool. And so yeah, like I feel
so you never
the
know.
hobby is all over the world, and like it is a potential opportunity to travel and meet people and so forth. So yeah,
I think it speaks to the power of like putting yourself out there and trying, maybe not finishing things all the way, but like getting it to a point that you can. For me, like saying, okay, that's done, I can move on to the next thing and learn some lessons, feels like more and more important to me. Like being a little bit less precious about just starting it and then finishing it and moving on, but like definitely not getting stuck in that like in between phase. Like I'm nervous in a couple ways about the Richmond event. Just I want it to be worthwhile for people who are like traveling, 10 hours or something.
I would say there's nothing that I can really say that you won't worry about it, but I think with all the events and stuff that we've been to, just the act of meeting and talking and hanging out with people, that's always like probably like the best thing. And I think just about everyone who comes there will be they're coming because they're really excited to meet people and all of that. So whether or not like all the games or whatever pan out exactly as you thought they would, that it honestly doesn't really matter.
I think I can find like more renewed comfort in that recently, just thinking about and finding old work that I like was precious about once, and now I'm like, once you can just finish it and then have distance from it, I can learn so much more from that than if it is 80% there and then it's never done and it's in my sketchbook. And I'm just excited to like, there's another step of finishing something. It'll happen, and then I'll learn from it, which will be very cool. And someday we should go visit. You guys went to Finland. We should go to Anna.
Oh yeah, no, I would love that.
That'd be so cool.
Well,
she's holding like awesome events all the time. It looks like
Anna's little. She had a model for Rotten Factory on Kickstarter. This weird, creepy, naked dude, and I was thinking,
classic Anna.
It could be I could probably relatively quickly paint it and convert it a little bit, and it would be a perfect model for the red, like, joy and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It'd be cool.
That would be very cool.
Yeah.
We should keep an eye on it in the future at some point.
Yes,
yeah.
Do you guys have any you have any other things planned in the future that you're excited about, like hobby wise, like after Virginia? You guys, we talked about your Necromunda campaign for that planet. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, no,
Like,
we've been slowly trying to develop some stuff to potentially hold an event at some point, but
mhm.
I don't know. We're slow about everything. Like I feel, Martin, like you thought like, it'd be fun to hold an event, and like you're already doing it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. We would like to do some of that and continue to work on some projects, but yeah, we're slow about stuff and are easily distracted.
I'm
But I mean,
sculpting
that's
Yeah.
fine.
I'm sculpting a goblin for 28. First fully sculpted model. I need to finish it. I need to do it, and it'll be
That's
a good
awesome.
learning experience.
Yeah, you're doing it.
Yeah, we'll see.
I think. Well, I'm excited. One of the things that's cool about this is like, Bill and Steve, South of Heaven, have been so helpful, and you guys have been really supportive, and Mike's been great about like running this, and like it feels really cool to have that connection. And then next time you guys run something, like when you're running that Necromunda campaign, like I definitely want to be there and like throw some
Yeah.
art to it and like participate and show the same like show up in the same way, because it feels so cool to be supported. And then like
Oh yeah,
I think the world you're building is also rad as hell.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of speaking to that point about like as you start to connect with other people and perhaps go to events or things, like you just meet so many cool, passionate people. And I think there's a lot of synergism there that like you can help each other out to do other things and do the things even
Hmm.
better or more comprehensively and get more people involved. And I think that is really neat and just makes the hobby better.
Amen. I agree.
Well, I guess with that, maybe we should bring this episode to a close. Just we've been talking for a while, but it's been really fun having you and chatting. I hope we can have you on again. Hopefully, at
Oh yeah, I
least to
love
chat
that.
about this Virginia event after it has come to pass. But
Yeah. Do you think you
we,
guys will record while you're in Virginia?
yes,
we're bringing
Okay,
stuff.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Hive Scum people will bring stuff certainly. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I got to get on mic for a second just to say
uh,
Baba Booey, Baba Booey.
is the dueling podcast gonna happen
It
again? Our
probably
mortal
should.
enemies, Hive Scum.
I mean, I've ordered that recording device that you guys turned me on to when I was
Oh
asking
yeah,
about it. I would really like to start like a little audio storytelling project. I just have like
hmm
some friends with very strange or funny stories that I like want to record for
yeah,
posterity.
That's cool.
So maybe I'll be recording as well. Maybe it'll be a
yeah. Shit,
dueling
Wild.
podcast and then my little thing in the corner.
that's the spirit.
Yeah.
Always good to start a new hobby.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, do you have any last words or anything you'd like to plug before we wrap this up?
If you're interested in Mosscarin, you can follow the link in my Instagram, martin.mccoy.art at Instagram. There's like a a link to the Kickstarter page that's will just like when it goes live
Coming
in
soon. Yeah.
like 5 months or whatever, you'll get notified. And that's really helpful for us just to know what kind of interest we have and who's looking at it. Other than that, check out Necropolis 28. Check out 28. Check out Between the Bolter and Me. Thanks so much for having me. It's been great. It's really, as far as my first podcast experience, what a treat.
Oh, that's good to hear, and I'll certainly put links in the like podcast description for all that stuff to
Oh,
help
cool.
people find it. But yeah, no, it's been really great chatting, and yeah, we'll have to have you on again soon.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody. All right, that portion's done.
There you go.
Amazing. We did it.
We did it.
You said like recording stories. Is this like stories, like life stories from people's lives, or like
Yeah,
short story shit that people write, and so stuff
stories from people's lives.
that,
Like
okay.
my friend Brittany went on a date with a guy at the Bayou in New Orleans. Like they were drinking like beers. It was like the middle of the day. I was a Tinder date, and he's like, I gotta pee, and she's like, okay, like go pee behind that tree. I don't know, but instead he walks into the bayou, which is like 4 feet deep, and just pees himself. And walks back and tries to continue the date. He's like, got his jeans are just soaking wet, and he's publicly pissed himself. I think some things just need to be recorded.
That's very
Because what if I
That's
forget that story?
peculiar.
Yeah, right.
Whoa.
What a
That's
bold
weird.
move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a choice.
Yeah, what a choice. I mean, I
Not
can't
one I
imagine
would've
anything
made,
more
but-
uncomfortable.
Yeah. Fuck.
Yeah. There's so many, and like New Orleans is not a place that's like so rigid that you can't get away with peeing on some trees.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
But I think
that's weird.
sometimes you have a friend tell you a story and you're like, oh, I want to be able to hear this from your lips while it's still fresh in 10 years, because it really
that's true.
put a little shine in my eye, and I want to.
Yeah.
I think that would be
that's
fun,
fair.
Wow.
especially
Everyone has
traveling.
a
I think,
weird story.
yeah. And Shelby and I are traveling, and you just run into more weirdos
That's
Uh-huh.
fair.
or more interesting, fun people with weird experiences.
Yeah, that's fair. That's true.
Do you have an idea of a name for the endeavor?
No, I don't.
Think of a
You
fun
got an
name.
idea?
Not yet, but I'll consider it.
Are both of your names based off of metal band references?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or okay, so it's
Yeah.
Between the Buried and Me, and then Dragged into Sunlight.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hey, I got it.
You did.
Yeah.
I passed the podcast test.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how it initiated, but somehow I thought it would be, I don't know, clever and sort of funny.
I don't know that I don't love Between the Buried and Me. They're kind of they're a prog metalish sort of band. And,
Yeah.
like, I mean, they're talented, but I don't even know how much I like them. And I think Eric, you came up with the name kind
Yeah.
of as a jokey sort of thing, and it was like, you know what? That's good.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Yeah, I think it's gold.
And then
I don't even
when-
think you need to like the band for it to
Yeah.
work. And it's also
Yeah.
a Faulkner book, I think, before them.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Okay,
didn't realize
and
that.
that's some
fair.
literary significance to it. And Dragged into Sunlight, I can genuinely say I like that band.
Is that right? Did I just make that up that this is a Faulkner book?
Who knows?
Well, let's look, hopefully.
But yeah, and for the podcast, we just, after doing the Between the Bolter and Me, figured we should find another band name, and it was hard, and that's what we came
No,
up
I
with.
think I just made it up. I think I was thinking of like the other Faulkner books that turned into metal, like
Okay. Yeah.
As They Lay Dying is
Yeah,
the
Yeah,
Faulkner book.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
similar.
what's the other one? Shit. I don't know. If I think of it, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
It makes me want to listen to Dragged into Sunlight. I've seen them on Spotify as like related, but to bands I listen to, but I haven't checked them out very much.
they're pretty abrasive, kind of an abrasive.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I saw them once in a biker bar in Pittsburgh, and they had like a spotlight hooked up to the bass drum, such that whenever they hit it, it would shine in the darkened room. And like they were doing
Whoa.
bullshit all the time, so it was just constantly
Like strobing.
Yeah, and it was really unpleasant. And most certainly they did it as a means to emulate being drugged into the sunlight. So it was
Oh,
great.
yeah.
It was great.
Very strange and rad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
What was the bar in Pittsburgh?
31st Street Pub. It closed somewhat recently.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, As I Lay Dying. Is that the one I said? Yes.
I think that's
What
what
the
you
hell? Damn it.
said.
Well, I'm glad we're not recording, so I can't
No, I
there
mean,
a
but
band-
it's a
add
lot.
off some Faulkner facts that are incorrect.
Is there a band called The Sound and the Fury or some shit? 'Cause
Maybe.
that's
There
another
could
one
be.
of
That
famous-
sounds like someone would name their band that.
Yeah.
But we are still live, so this is still being recorded in some sense. It's
But,
just
like,
not going to
not
be
What?
That,
recorded
not
in
that
the-
many
I'm
people are gonna
humiliated.
watch it.
Yeah, I don't
No one's
think
ever going to
many
take
people will get to this.
my.
And most people, I feel, will just listen to the edited podcast portion. But
hmm
a select few may hear this, and
And they'll get the choice. That
Yeah.
sweet cream of the crop where Martin says something that's wrong and then looks on his phone and continues to be wrong.
yeah, good times, right? Good.
Well, I think
times.
I'm going to go
Yeah,
catch up with
nah,
Shelby and drink a beer.
Nice.
that sounds good.
Well, yeah, thanks
It was-
again for joining us tonight. It's been really fun. And we will talk to you soon and see you soon. So that'd be
Yeah.
even better.
It's going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
Looking
Yeah.
forward to it. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
problem at
no.
all.
Thanks for joining us.
Yep. Thanks everybody for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy. Keep on enjoying the hobby. We will talk to you again soon. Till next time, over and out.
See everybody.
Over and out. Toads, frogs.
Yeah.